Hello and welcome to this episode of the Harmonic Motion podcast. I'm delighted to be sitting with Darren Darling from the DPF Doctor, who's kindly given up his time to chat, chew the cud and kick around all things industry related. So Darren, warm welcome to the Harmonic podcast. Thanks very much for agreeing to appear.
Thank you for inviting me. The pressure's on. In the hot seat.
You're in the hot seat.
Yeah, in the hot seat. I've been watching all the previous episodes, so really excited for doing this. Maybe a little bit nervous because they've all been good so far. So hopefully I don't let the team down over the next hour or so,
I know. I'm sure not. I'm sure. From what I know about you, we've been buddies for a long time now. So your story is very, very interesting, and what you've got going on at the DPF Doctor, and your life before it, is interesting and inspiring. And I'm hoping through our conversation we'll shine a light on some of that, Darren, and you'll be able to share that with our dear listener.
Well, we shall do our best, and hopefully nobody falls asleep while listening.
No. Cool stuff. So on that note, Darren, I suppose it would be really useful to and helpful for you to share your journey, maybe pre motor trade, or how you got into the trade, how you got into the industry, and in that journey how you ended up moving into the field of DPF repairs. And then interestingly, then you spawned the DPF Doctor network. So what could you share with our listener about your journey then?
Quite funnily enough, it's a bit different to a lot of people that come into the industry. When I left school at 16, I didn't have any interest in staying on at school because, believe it or not, I'd done all right at school. So, but I didn't really enjoy sitting in a classroom. I knew that I wanted to be doing some sort of job, not sat in an office or anything like that. And initially, when I first left school in the spring of 1990, waiting on the last couple of exams, I probably landed my dream job, and it was nothing to do with cars. I initially, for a couple of months, worked at a holiday camp. Now, 16-year-old working at the holiday camp, collecting glasses in the nightclub, and also doing a bit of DJing in the kids' disco part. And I'd go to work and come home about 3 days later, to the disgust of my mother, and before the days of mobile phones. And, I just thought I had it made, but it only lasted a couple of months, and then I had to go and get a real job. So the motor trade thing was simply, my dad, I get my work ethic from my dad. I've never been shy of hard work. But when he left to go to work on a morning, I was kicked out the door. I had to leave at the same time as my dad to go job hunting, which was probably more than normal back then. Get out, you little so-and-so, and don't come home till you've got a job. I had no interest in cars or trucks, as it happened, that I started working on initially. And it was just a case of knocking on all sorts of doors. I actually wanted to be an electrician initially, and I'd done all my school work experience with an electrician. That job fell through because the guy I was due to work for had an accident, and I got offered 2 jobs on the same day. One of them was working in a shoe repairs and a leather repair. Back then people didn't throw their shoes away; they got them resold and all that stuff. And the other one was in a truck workshop. So I had to decide, flip a coin, and it wasn't really anything different apart from vehicles will still be around for the long term. I wasn't quite sure, if it would be a dying thing with the cobblers or not. And I chose to go and work in a garage, and it was simple as that. No family from the trade. No growing up tinkering on cars with my uncle or my dad or anything like that. It was just simply, I best not go home till I found a job, or my dad's got clippers round the ear for not, finding one. So so that was the start of it. And that was up in Berwick-upon-Tweed, which is my hometown. I'm about an hour south of there now. And I loved it, getting dirty around the trucks, and the most amazing place to work. Going in there at 16, didn't know what a spanner was. I was I was as green as they come, James. I remember being asked to go to the toolbox, and I used to dread that, someone asking for a tool, and I'm like, I've got no idea. I really have got zero. I didn't know what a 17 mil spanner was. I was that, straight out the box, brand new. But that stuck with me, how little I knew. I've always been patient with apprentices, because I remember being that 16-year-old. So, didn't have a clue, but you had to work hard. I learned how to swear a lot. Worked lots of hours, used to do recoveries. It was a good, fun place to work if you worked hard. If you didn't work hard, you were out the door. If you worked hard, it was a good, fun place. You grew up quite quick in that environment, So that was the initial start,
Did you start there as an apprentice then, Darren?
I was on the YTS scheme back in the day, rich with £27.50 a week, So I seen your clip of your upcoming one, so we both started there, £27.50 a week. So if you wanted to have your motorbike on the road, you had to work overtime, so 5 days a week we'd work late, and then a Saturday morning, and that would ensure the motorbike put the petrol in and things like that, So, and then at 17 it went up to, was it £35 a week on the YTS scheme? Thought you were rich, £7.50 a week extra for that extra year of knowledge, So
it's crazy. And I remember at the time I was earning 14 quid from a paper round and 27 quid for 40 hours work. The scheme was great because it got you in there, but rich you definitely weren't. And I said, if I did another couple of paper rounds, I'd have earned, in 6 or 7 mornings what I earned.
Do you know what though? I'm going to say this looking back now. I'm not saying, and we'll touch on this as we go through. I think there's a lot of things wrong with businesses getting thrown grants and money to take young people on. That, really, we'll talk about that later maybe, because I get quite passionate about that. It's not the reason to take people on, but for the individual's point of view, I don't think it does you any harm to be skint and have to work longer. If you want the motorbike, you want the car, you have to put the extra hours in, because newsflash, that's life, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's what everything, no matter what, when it comes to bigger things like having a house or a holiday and all them things, you maybe got to put a bit extra graft in to get them things. And so I think starting off on that, at the time where you thought, worked all week for £27.50, but, and then out of that, I had to pay my board money to my parents and stuff like that, so you weren't left with a lot unless you done quite a lot of overtime. For me, I think I think everyone should be skint at some point in their life to make you a bit more resilient, So
and appreciating the value of those things. What 27.50 was. It did certainly focus, but of course, and I think you're probably a bit like me. I focused then on. Actually, it's I'm being paid to train. So as much as it wasn't a proper job, I still really got that groove that I'm being loaded up with experience and training here. The boys I'm working with in the garage I started working with, in fact, I sat with one of my apprentice coaches at the Blend, the Garage Hive Blend. He's a Garage Hive user, and we were sort of talking, reminiscing back then. But for that 27.50, actually being paid to train, because we got the day at college. And then you got the wisdom of the guys in the workshop. And do you know what? That even not in retrospect then, I always sort of realised that's a bloody good deal, actually. I'm getting trained and employed and work experience, and I'm having a few quid.
You always look back at the people you work with, I think, then as well, with a lot of respect. I met last year, I was his apprentice in that workshop. Brian Jody, we got Jody Hunter, he came in, and I was blown away to catch up with him, and he follows all our work online. But for me, it was the other way around. That was my mentor coming in to see me in my workspace. So, he loved seeing all the work we do. But for me, it was different, because he was the first guy to take me under his wing and actually learn me things, and, learn me to work hard, and, and just have a bit of attention to detail and things that, if someone gets that wrong when you're 16, 17-year-old, all the wrong stuff carries with you throughout your career. But if you've got a good guy drilling all that into you, it's not necessarily about the skill set; it's more your mindset that doesn't change, and so it was a bit like you sitting there at the blend. It was really cool getting that visit, and we talked for hours and things. It was brilliant. We lost touch for a long time, in the powers of Facebook, so we caught up, and now we'll keep in touch and things. So that's pretty cool. You never forget where you started, James, or I think you shouldn't.
No.
No,
never. No, and I think very wise words there, Darren, also about actually the responsibility. So when then I was in slightly more senior, probably like yourself, that stuff that you learnt from those other people, my dad included, because my dad was probably my first pre-apprentice trainer in terms of the stuff that he taught me about doing it properly. And I remember building an engine. I managed to blow up the motorcycle several times that I used to travel to my apprenticeship in, and we were doing a job on the bike, and the techniques that even he was showing me about that cleanliness next to godliness and the preparation and all that really sort of stuck. And it was that you're in awe, aren't you? Because you don't know what you don't know even. And those coaching methods about precision and about cleanliness and about the attitude to doing it properly, and measurements and all that sort of stuff. And I always think of that when I then was taking on sort of younger kids under my wing. I was never worried about doing it, and I saw that from exactly that perspective. You're going, the way I was in awe of those guys, I now have that responsibility sort of downwardly. So they're now looking at me with those same eyes, and you're going, that's actually quite a big deal. And so taking that seriously as you get the opportunity to train youngsters.
And I think we have to remember that, how we looked at them guys, James, because whether we like it or not, or whether it's happened by accident or not, we are guys that some young people look up to, and I always remember thinking, I want to be like that guy. So we're not just showing them things. We have to light the fire, and we have to get all the work ethic and the mindset and the attitude right, because for me, everything else is trainable, but attitude isn't. And it's hard after 25 years and down the line to change how someone thinks or their attitude. It's got to be done fairly early on, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, it's
Yeah, I think it gets you to mature a bit faster as well. Because I remember then, you're telling these young kids in some life lessons, in fact, because you get involved with girlfriends and trouble at college and fights that they're in and scrapes they get into, and you're barely 22 or 23, and you've got this young 16-year-old that's in the situation that you were in not but 5 years ago, and you're telling them you're not going to come across like their mum or their dad, but you're giving them the real world. It's such a responsibility, isn't it? And you're sort of helping them manage how to handle that situation that you were in yourself only just a few short years ago.
And you go from being sort of, I don't know, I was probably I was fairly cocky. All right, I was a little bit of a jack the lad at school, liked to mess around, stuff like that. So you go from being, in with all the cool people at school, and now you realise you're the boy in the workshop. It's all big hairy men that shout and swear a lot, and it's a completely different world, isn't it? You've left school, and then newsflash, you're now in the real world. You can't get away with all the stuff you got away with around your mates and stuff like that. So, but I always remember that you see the sheepish young guy walking in, tensed up in the workshop. It's quite an intimidating experience, So
it can be, yeah.
Yeah, we just need to, I think that should stay with you when you can't let your head disappear up your own backside as you go. So I think if you remember where you started and the things that people taught you, it's important that we try and pass that on, isn't it? So that was probably a lot long-winded way of saying I started working in a garage in 1990, working on trucks. So stayed there, worked there for. This is where the YTS thing bit me a little bit. There's 3 years in. was an Iveco Ford, so they had the car side, the truck side. I worked on the truck side. They had a large body shop, and it was through the sort of period of time where all the manufacturers decided, oh, we need big, fancier showrooms, and the existing showroom's not fit for purpose. Now, in a small town, having to build, and I imagine that put huge financial strain on the company. Built all big new showrooms and stuff like that, and maybe 18 months later there were redundancies, and because I wasn't an employee, and by that time I'm now the end of my third year, where I'm still on a scheme where I'm being paid somewhere between that scheme money and the skilled guys, so it's an easy wage to get rid of because I'm not really an employee on paper. So I was sort of brushed to one side, a little bit young and foolish as well at the big staff meeting, because my old service manager, a guy called Norman Cromarty, again a guy that I've got huge respect for, was fighting behind the scenes to keep me on, because he was like, he's a good guy, he's got good potential. So he's already having them conversations, and I'm shouting at the big boss for getting rid of me because I've just lost my job, and he's at the back on, shaking his head as if to say, well, there's a time to just shut up. But I was a bit young and hot-headed and stuff, and told him exactly what I thought of him. But then luckily, he managed to get me back in, but in a different department. So they had a fast fit department as well, which primarily tyres, exhaust and service, and so that got me back in and got me to finish my apprenticeship, which leaving it sort of semi-qualified, I probably wouldn't be in the trade now realistically. Nobody wants a half qualified tech, so I was quite lucky that I didn't blow it there, to be honest, but got back in doing that for a while, so it's all good.
You make a really good point there. You see people are pulling for you in the background. Sometimes you're a bit young and daft, you don't realise that. And I know in my own personal life that's happened where you can't see, you're not wise enough to understand that. So I can imagine the guy sagely, going.
I can remember his face still. That's 31 years ago, and I can still remember the face that he pulled, and he's gone, shaking his head like as if to say, "Will you shut up?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not shut up." One more thing. And it got quite personal as well, James. I didn't just say, I'm not happy about losing my job. I told him exactly what I thought of him. And he wasn't happy about it. And I was like, well, I've been sacked anyway, so what's the worst that can happen? And then after the meeting, I got pulled in by the ear of a big Norman who's gone, "You need zip it. I've nearly got your job back." And I went, "Oh, right. Well, maybe if you'd said before the meeting," he said, "Well, I'm not allowed to." He says, so, he wasn't allowed to say anything before the meeting. And, I wasn't the only one that was upset in the grand scheme of things. I lived at home with my parents. There's, there were guys there losing their jobs that had mortgages and kids to feed, which were far more important than the apprentice, and, they had bigger concerns and stuff. But at the time, I had my motorbike to keep on the road and my car, so I needed to work. So, so that I was nearly a goner.
It's funny. It's funny. It's funny that year, 92, I think, I worked in a Ford. I was working in a Ford. No, I wasn't. It was a bit earlier, but we had redundancies very similar to that. And that was my second. I worked for Volkswagen, then I went to a Ford place. And the day I signed up for my mortgage, I'd moved in with a girlfriend and got a house and got the mortgage done. And we came back to work after the appointment, and we're all called in for the dreaded talk about redundancies back in that sort of late 80s phase. And it is, I was thinking the same thing, actually. Funny you say that. I'm thinking, well, I'm in a bit of a fix because I've just signed up for the mortgage, but I'm looking over there at my workmates who are married with kids, and they're the main breadwinner. The wife's working part-time. She's got a part-time job, and I go, some of these guys are really in the fix here. it's I can go and get a job, and but as you do, had a sideline and thought, what, I can cover the mortgage from the private work. So
Yeah.
if the worst happens, it presents a bit of an opportunity. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, at the time you just think, and I'm glad I did get kept on, because obviously I'm still in the trade, almost 50 now, and still here and stuff like that. So it's good to get this point in, because obviously now, like yourself, we go out and about and we've got clean hands, so a lot of people look outwardly in at what we do and they think I'm a sort of sales guy or something like that. But if they've seen us then head to toe in oil working on trucks, was it's what we've done for a long time. We've just changed as we've hopped along the road. So but I enjoyed working on trucks. I'm not sure it's something I'd like to do getting a bit older, because it's much heavier work. And it certainly helps change the skinny young 16-year-old soon gets a workout every day going to work. Everything's heavy, even taking a wheel off, or set of rear brakes or something, just that you're doing all day every day. It's quite heavy going, so it certainly kept you fit back in the day. So, but I eventually moved across to cars when I was probably about 21, so, and I struggled a little bit with that initially, because it was a lot of differences, so especially, things that you put petrol in rather than diesel. So, all them little things like that, so there was a bit of a transition, and I went from working with really good people. This also learnt me a lot. I went to work with some people that I would get on all right without a work, but not good people to work with. Transitioning from heavier stuff, things like things like timing belts and stuff like that. We did do some on vans, but there was generally where the one guy in the workshop that used to rattle off transit timing belts all day long, and just little things like that where you'd say, can you just double check this just to make sure? I'd rather you come and felt the tension of that rather than it falls off, because this is so it's not that you couldn't do it, and you never got that, and you just got, well, if you can't do the job, you shouldn't be here. And I'm like, and I've always tried to make sure that I've never had that attitude with others, because it wasn't a nice place to go to work in the morning, where where I served my apprenticeship, you had to be in 15 minutes before everyone else, get the bins empty, get the vehicles out, all that stuff. And you were there early every day, got cracked on, and it was good fun. To now, well, I'm scared to ask my new boss a question because I'm still wet behind the ears. I'm 21, and you get shouted at, So I think the two opposing experiences I had as a young guy in the trade have actually played that stuck with me in different ways, and I'd like to think that's helped me be a better person with young guys coming in, maybe more patient, because I know how it feels when you just get called stupid, So that was my first transition to cars, and it was it wasn't the greatest of start, So didn't stay there long and then moved on, So, I was quite happy by that point. Now I was qualified. If I didn't like it, the work culture, I would just move on. So, I worked in 4 or 5 different workshops over the first probably 10 years of my career, So
isn't it funny? You probably and it's, you rate. That's a really good point, because again, one of the things that I think is critical. Again, when I was looking for jobs, when I moved out of my first garage to the second one, it was a bit about, I was looking for the chi in the place. So the money was the money, and it wasn't really the driving force. It was, can I work with these people? What's the service manager like? My first place was really good. It was an owner manager, the guy Tony Sparrow ran that garage. He was the sort of boss and the works. And then I dropped into a different garage. But like you said, I'm looking for the chi of the people that were there. And I think I've been a little bit lucky again, fortuitous. I've never had that horrendous experience where you don't get that bit of support. But I think partly that was a little bit picking and choosing the job type and going, oh, do you know what, that I don't like the smell, look, feel of that place. It's all a little bit, when you go in, there's an atmosphere, isn't there? If you get it, if it's not quite right.
And doing the jobs it doesn't change, does it? If you're doing a clutch on a whatever back in a Ford Mondeo, let's say, you're doing the same physical thing no matter what workshop you're in. But that can be an easy day's work, or when your head's down and there's that toxic culture, everything becomes a chore. So I think if the work culture is good, people work harder, they've got a spring in their step, they'll maybe have their lunch a little bit later because the customer's sat in reception, or all them little things click into place when the culture's good. You need to stay back an hour later. Yeah, no problem. But you don't want to do that for where there's that. Might not be the owner might be nice people, but you've got that one toxic person, that bad egg that creates that, and that atmosphere. You can feel it when you go into a workshop, like yourself. I've visited a lot of different workshops in the last few years of my career, certainly. And there's never two the same, you can see very quickly the ones that have got that good team culture, team spirit, as opposed to you could cut the atmosphere with a knife, And I think it's important that we create that when we have members of staff, again, because, they'll roll their sleeves up for you, when things are tricky and you're up against it, they're there side by side with you, So, but I think that the two different, working into the two completely different environments is certainly, played its part for me. I think that you never forget all these little experiences, So they kind of mould us a little bit, James, I think.
They do, yeah, they do. And this is probably a serious note as a garage owner or a business owner is taking that. Some people who have been mechanics and then they've got into a business maybe sometimes don't see that unless they've experienced it. It can be one of the blind spots that, the culture. How do you develop and engender a good culture in your own business? Is an important thing. And as you say, people will do what's right rather than doing the bare minimum if they feel part of that team. And I know a couple of places.
Yeah, I think sorry to interrupt there, James. But yeah. So you say,
the couple of, and one of the indicators that both of those garages, so the Volkswagen garage and latterly the Ford place, had a really active social life outside of the garage. So the boys, not every day, but there would be social events where people would rock up and sort of participate and join in, and it was more than just a job. And that has to come, I think, down to the service manager, if you like, as well as the boys and girls in the team. But yeah, getting the culture right is important and can be missed depending on what sort of experience you've had as a business owner.
Yeah, I think if you've got and most business owners listen to this will they'll know their staff, they'll know who the sick notes on the Monday are, and who goes out every Sunday and has the flu on Monday and things like that. But you get to know who the proper, even if you're working with people. And I think that in Egypt, things I see quite a lot on groups is, my tech's off poorly. How long should it take before he, phones me up, and I demand a phone call every day and stuff like that. And for me, that's not a good work culture. Personally, it's very rare. Callum, that's my right-hand man. He has been here 10 years. He was off, he hurt his back quite badly a little while ago. And I got, we heard he was at hospital, and we heard from his girlfriend. We're like, just keep us posted, come back when he's better. He doesn't need to be worrying about phoning me up 3 times a day to give us an update, because you know what? I trust him and we have a good work environment. and he wants to be at work and he enjoys. Everyone has a bad day at work, don't get us wrong, but if if you've got someone like that you trust, then don't, they feel bad enough that they're off. So for me, I don't need a note. I don't need a letter from the doctor to say he doesn't need to come to work. I'm just gonna let him go. Yes, it puts you under pressure. The old guy's got to get back in the workshop a bit more and stuff like that. But you've just got to crack on with it and things. So I think as a business owner, I think you have to look at you being that person in that situation as well. What you really want from your bosses. The first thing is, I hope you're okay. Please make sure you don't come back till you're fit enough. So, but the culture thing is a funny one. Not some people are maybe detached from it a little bit. So I think if you've got a good team, it goes a long way. So
it does.
So yeah, moving on with the journey a little bit. So eventually worked for a couple of different garages. Worked with I went to work with a good friend of mine, John Strawn up in Berwick, GS45. Still very good friends with John. So that was a much better experience in gaining a bit of better experience with cars, really, because old John, I call him that in a good way because there's John Senior, John Junior. So, but he would involve the young guys in a strange job, and again, huge mentor of mine. I best be careful in case he listens to this that I don't say anything too nice, because he still just winds me up non-stop, and he's in his mid-70s now. But I like the fact that the older guy in the workshop valued the opinion of us, because we might have come up with the answer. Most often he did, he didn't need us to tell him what was wrong. He's a clever guy. But that gave me a bit more of a positive introduction to cars, and then went to work in a main dealership after that, a Vauxhall one, which was probably the worst workshop, but the best place to work. Everyone moaned about the roof was leaking. Not a typical main dealership as you would have now. The roof was leaking. There was buckets on the floor and stuff. I moved to a different town, so I was a stranger coming in, and what a great bunch of guys to work for. So I really, really enjoyed working there. The owner was actually also a farmer, which was an unusual setup for a main dealership. A guy called Stan Willis, and he was he'd have a suit on and he'd roll his sleeves up and get stuck in. It was just in his nature, and he's a great guy. And I left. When I left there, he tried to keep me, but I went to work for a friend of mine who was up against it. He'd lost all his staff through various reasons, one through illness, one through whatever. So I was going working there through his backlog of jobs till midnight. And I ended up just working there for him, give him a leg up. And I always think, don't burn your bridges unless you have to, because I seen the owner of that same main dealership in a bar in Spain. Long story. I went there for 6 months, change of scenery. I, drove across there in a van, spent a bit of time over there, done a bit of DJing and bars and things. So I had a little bit of a 6 months out. And I saw him in a bar, and he said, if you ever end up back in my town, there's always a job for you. So it's quite a funny story. 6 months later, I drove back in a van where, well, I probably shouldn't have drove it back all the way from Spain, but I was a bit young and daft. So I needed somewhere to park it because it wasn't taxed, So I drove in on a Saturday afternoon. All the workshop was closed, gone home, and he's in the showroom. And I remember saying, Stan, can I park my van in your backyard because it's got no tax? And he said, what are you doing? I went, I've just drove back from Spain. He went, well, I'll see you Monday. I went, I'll see him. And I just laughed, and he went, no, seriously, I'll see you at 8:30 on Monday. So I went in on the Monday morning, and everyone thinks I'm on the wind-up, don't they? Because I got on really, really well with my old service manager and all the boys in the workshop. So I rock up on Monday morning. They're not advertising for staff. They've left at lunchtime as normal on the Saturday. Monday morning, I'm in there and I'm up in the staff room saying, I better see if there's any overalls in here that fit. And they're like, what's going on? And my service manager didn't believe a word I said, because we used to wind each other up all the time. And I said, well, give us a job, don't give us a job. And the big boss didn't come until 9, so 9 o'clock he walks into the workshop and he went, apparently you work here now. And he was true to his word, you know.
Nice.
He was on a golfing holiday and I seen him in a bar in Benidorm, and he said, you ever end up in here, and even if I'm not looking for staff. So a little tip for anyone listening, work hard till your last day there, and you never know, because I was hoping that he would be good for his word, because I needed a job, didn't I? You know, so that was quite funny though. So anyway, that's kind of how things started, really, you know.
Yeah, no, it sounds, and you've had a good and wide and varied experience there, Darren, across, you know, cars and trucks, and learning your graft and your trade. So what led you then to eventually moving from, you know, the employment realm to setting up on your own? Because that was probably a big transition, was it, in your life, where you'd gone from employment to self-employed?
Well, I've done it twice. The first time, which in the earlier part there, I thought I'll have a crack at it when I was about 23. And this also put me in a good position, because I'd done everything wrong. Everything that you can tell someone not to do when starting their own business is everything that I'd done, you know. So far too cheap, having to work 80 hours a week to try and scratch a few quid at the end, you know, making sure I was cheaper than everyone else, and you know, overrun my work but not making any money, no spare time. So I've done that for a little bit, and then I went back into employment, and that probably made me appreciate what my boss was going through a bit more, when other guys were moaning about their wage, and I'm like, you want to try getting out there and doing it for yourself? It's not that easy. So that was a little bit of a, you know, again, it molds you a little bit. But going further down the line, when I initially moved down to where I am now, where my wife's from, down in Ashington, hooked up with an old work colleague of mine from the Vauxhall days. He'd started selling cars, went on his own. He was obviously a sales guy. And I would start going in and like helping him out and things like that, you know, just dropping in when I can and giving him a leg up. And then we actually opened our own workshop back in maybe 2006. I was already self-employed at this time, but not in premises. So, you know, I used to dot around, like I do the school run, and then I had a farmer that would go up and fix some of his machinery and quad bikes and wherever he just, whatever was in the shed waiting, and then I'd go and do the school run after. And then, so that quite suited my sort of personal life at the time, to sort of be self-employed but not tied to a set of walls. But then we ended up opening the workshop in something like 2007, because it was quite difficult at the time for him to get things done, you know, or there were faults on vehicles that, you know, people kept throwing parts at and stuff like that. So that was kind of my start of getting other people's problems. So, you know, starting to, like, you know, actually fix a car rather than spend £1,000 on it and not fix it. And then I've faced what everyone else faces. Where have all these cars come from? I've now got a car park full of broken things, but nobody's got any money left to fix them. and I went through that, and I think we all go through this. What I would say is the hero stage, where you want to be the guy that fixed it, right? And I know that you would advise people to pick your fights now, and you know, but you've got to kind of go through that heartache of everyone else is at home with their kids. Mine are in bed, and I'm still at the workshop at 11 p.m. trying to work out what's wrong with this car, because 5 other people have looked at the car, and I want to be the guy that's fixed it.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's again quite hard to make money unless you're 10 years in and you know to charge your time properly, which we're probably at now. But back then, before you had as many groups and events and networking and all them valuable things that learn you to, you know, charge for your time and things like that. You know, so it became a problem. It became a bit of a problem for me, to the point where I split away from the workshop. Not on bad terms. I still do work. We've got a job in next door today from them. You know, the workshop's still there. But I come out of it, handed that over, and I decided to concentrate on just doing diag work and tuning as well. So, you know, bit of remapping. We used to manufacture our own plug and play tuning boxes back in the day. We stopped that a few years ago now. But I decided to concentrate on the specialist stuff so that I didn't have to be there till midnight every day, burning a candle at both ends. You know, maybe I might a couple of nights a week see the kids before they go to bed, or that type of thing, you know. So that, you know, the opening the workshop was really, that was driven by my friend's car sales needing a reliable workshop at the time, you know.
Yeah. And so then you picked. Did you pick on sort of specialist? The diag work then was when you sort of started doing it for yourself. That was you moved out of the hero phase and sort of realised there is a certain cachet, and as you're building your reputation, those jobs are probably necessary, and you know, you find some pretty good customers, don't you? You know, when you solve the unfixable, your credibility goes up, and then they'll give you other jobs. So there definitely is a way of doing that. But I think it's you're trying to temper it with, I can do the odd hero job to win a new customer, but you have to like you say, pick.
Well, that's right. We're still doing it now to a certain degree because we need to learn from them jobs. But the things that the main things we've done wrong then was if 75% of the car park are jobs from other workshops, and you're doing them all at trade price because they're trade, so therefore they should be doing it for cheap, then you're not really making any money because you're doing everything at, you know, a lower hourly rate, but you're doing work that they either don't want to do or not capable, and that's not disrespectful to them. You know, they just maybe haven't invested the time or whatever. So we had to learn, and we don't have trade prices now. We offer them a very good service, but there's no difference in price whether it's a retail customer or the main dealership or whatever. But back then, when I just thought this is what everyone does, you know, I'm trade, all right, it'll be half the amount. Then you're actually doing twice the amount of work to earn the same money, and that was a big learning curve for us. But you're right, you have to do some hero jobs to build the reputation up, you know, and you know. But now we learn maybe to manage them a bit better. Right, that's been 5 or 6 people, but actually that guy it went to is quite smart. I know that guy's pretty good, so this might give us the runaround. So we might need you to leave the vehicle with us for a few days, or you know, let's get some breathing space, get some time on the clock and things like that. So I think the biggest difference now is we've learned to manage them, or do the James Dillon 10-year-old tyre test. You know, if it's got Ling Long on one side and a ditch finder on the other, and you know the wings bashed, and it you know, there's no love shown to the car. If you're initially going to be a 4-figure sum to look at the car, then there's no point in proceeding. Just have the conversation with a customer. And I remember, I can't remember where we were where you said that phrase, and me and Callum say that all the time. It's an older car and it's got 4 Michelins and it's nice and clean. Let's take it in and let's spend some time on it. You know, it still gets some love, but that little phrase goes a long way. We're picking your fights a little bit, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's if the vehicle's valued. I think latterly we sort of call that the customer voyage discovery of what they're using the car for and how they see the car. Trade to trade's really tricky, Darren, isn't it? Because so very often you're not dealing, and that sort of came from I'm not dealing with the customer. I'm dealing with another garage, so their view
Yeah,
about the value or the worth of the car isn't necessarily the customer's view, and you can tell a lot from the car. And like you say, it's got matching tires and they're good quality, and the inside is clean and tidy. And you can just look at that and go, that's absolutely worth doing. Yeah. But
yeah.
now, yeah, voyage of discovery is important, isn't it? Yeah, in those
Yeah,
jobs.
and be comfortable as well, James. If the customer is horrendous, we all get them. If the there is nothing wrong with saying we are clearly not the right place for you. And I think that's important. To also, if you've got a team, back your team on that. If someone comes in and are really rude to we have a small team here anyway, but if they're rude to any one of the team, then we're not the right place for you. We don't have to stand and argue about it. We just politely say, clearly you've come to the wrong place. We can't meet your expectations, so
Expectations. Yeah.
we decline the opportunity for you to be our customer.
Hmm.
And we will do that. Because then it's less stressful for the work environment. There are plenty other cars to fix. So just
Yeah.
be bold a little bit at times.
Yeah, do you know, we were talking about that this week. We're doing a scope, advanced scope with the diagnostic tech group that we're in, and we got to talking, and the subject of that came up. We have this customer car matrix. You have to have the right car and the right customer really to get that successful outcome. If you have the wrong
Yeah,
customer with the right car, or you have the right customer with the wrong car, it's going to not necessarily end in successful outcomes, and you're going to be either compromised in terms of pressure or finances or time or stress and outcome, and there's going to be some level of anguish. So those two things have to be sort of aligned. And we're saying,
yeah,
as a diag tech, if you're any good, I could fill the car park out there with 40 or 50 cars with problems. If I put the call out today, by Monday morning, I would be jammed with cars. So over the weekend, the word would get out, and there'd be people queuing around the block with broken cars with horrendous problems. But really, the trick is, and this is where sort of marketing comes into it, is to attract 40 or 50 cars with that are the right cars and with the right customers. Actually, is the skill now in the job, isn't it? It's sending your message, probably extending the values that you've got, that you're nice people, and that you only deal with nice people, and you've got certain values, and i.e. knowing your own worth. You've got values in the way that you need to be dealt with in terms of honourable. You can't be lifting your leg or fighting with customers over price and stuff. It's about sending out that message, and you will reap what you sow. If you set your stall out, people know when they walk up to the place that it's not for me. This just doesn't. It's not aligned with my values. Maybe your place. I know your place is like mine. It's spotlessly clean and tidy. It portrays an image, and customers coming there will know. The wrong customers sort of look like they're looking around, going, "What am I doing in this place?" It's not like my usual garage that's
uh,
maybe not quite so
yeah.
clean and tidy.
And I think it's easier now, James, that now the era we're in with social media and things, and whether you like it or don't like it, it's a necessary evil if you want to attract the right people. But people, if they're coming into your premises and they already feel like they know your values, we're family business, we're clean and tidy, we're approachable, you get more of the right people walking through the door. So we don't have to have the difficult conversations too often, because the other people think, oh, they're a fortune or they're expensive and they don't come. So, but we get the occasion ones where we have to decline them as a customer. But if you project yourself in the right way, where I think it's important that you don't come across as arrogant and cocky and that's not the message, is it? The message isn't the other workshops are rubbish, because there are lots of things they can do that I can't. I've been off the spanners now. We haven't done mechanical. I've done very little mechanical since 2008, 2009. Can you imagine how out of date I am with things like clutches and DSG stuff
Yeah.
and things? I wouldn't last a fortnight in an average workshop. So we've got to be mindful of that. We're not slating the others. We're just concentrating on, this is who we are, this is what we can do, this is what we can offer. And more of the right people think that's the place that, that I need to go to. Tell you your problems, and you just tell them what it's going to cost, or, for us, for our initial assessment or whatever, say, this is what you need to pay us to evaluate the problem. Yeah, no problem. When can I book in? So social media makes things much, much easier for us to get that message across, So, but you can get the bad message out there and the wrong message out there quite easily also, can't you? So.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, and that you've got to be really. I think and a lot of garage owners and garage businesses and techs that are now running their business think sometimes that that advertising has to be about a deal. It has to be about money off. It has to be based on price. But you've summed it up there really. No, if you talk about quality and you talk about success and you talk about the values and the achievements that you're making in that specific bit, that's doing the. And I often think of it, Darren, is that you don't want the phone to ring with everybody. You want it to ring with the right people, and that's about tuning your message, isn't it, for your socials and your customer interaction? It's funneling the right people to get in touch.
That's right. Can you imagine if your Diag boot camp was 30 quid? Could you imagine how horrendous that would be, James? It's the same thing, isn't it? This is great value for money. It's going to cost you a few quid, and you get the right people in, and everyone's happy. You get the right people come through the door, and it's the same with your workshops, isn't it? If you're 10 quid an hour, you're going to be back to where I was when I was 23, and I've got all the wrong people and all the people that don't want to pay you, and they turn up with a spare key and take the car away, and then you're away jacking the car up and taking parts off, which I don't even know if it's legal, but it's what I done back then. But all them problems disappear when you just charge the right money and do things properly. Life becomes a little bit easier. But
it's amazing. I always think of that old saying, Darren, birds of a feather flock together, and that's true in both the positive and the negative. And if you manage to let your negative customers slip in and you're dealing with those people, they will tell other people that are like them that you do that sort of work. And the good people will tell other good people, but equally the bad people will tell other bad people, and before you know it, you're knee deep in people that have got a very different mindset and attitude to you. So,
then it's a hard day at work, isn't it?
It's hard.
It's a hard day at work, and it's the people. Most people do what they do because they're maybe half decent at it. You think, all right, I can fix some cars. I'm going to open my own place, but then you've got to learn how to run a business, and you've got to learn how to deal with people. So it's not the job in the workshop that's the hard part. That's it's like how many people you speak to and they say, I love it when I can get in early. I get a job done before the phone rings. It's a couple of days ago I was in early, and before Callum or Lindsay was in, I got in. Now I've got more chance of getting that job done at 7:30. So there was a customer arrived early to post the keys at 7:30 with a Ford Transit van with a DPF problem. I thought, I'll just dive on that now, and that's the easiest job of the day because there's no people around. I don't have to talk to anyone. I just have to think, what's wrong with this van? That's what we're here for, isn't it? So the more you can eliminate the dramas with people, just the easier life becomes. So.
Yeah. Again, very funny. Fixing cars is very easy. Fixing people is actually quite difficult.
No, that's true. I spoke about this in my talk at Mechanex last week, and at the end of it, with some of the scenarios, and said, but then you're sometimes in that position of you've got to fix the person, and that's not always easy, So you've got to have a knack to how you explain it to the. What changes we need you to do, but fixing people is the hard part. Cars are something a lot easier to understand, James, than people are, So as you well know, So
tell me about mechanics. How did you get on at mechanics then? You were there recently at the show, and
it's really good. Really good. I liked it. Now I've not been there for 2 or 3 years now, because we had the COVID time, which was interesting for all of us. And then last year I was in America at the same time. So I thought I'll go there, done a couple of talks. Talks were busy, which is, yourself, you don't want to talk to an empty room. And we were non-stop all day, both days on the stand, So that, it was really good for us to gets us to chat to, we're not there at that event to, we're not actually selling something as such. We're there just to engage with people. It's a good chance for people to come and ask us questions and things. So from that point of view, it was really worthwhile, gets people to know a bit more about what we are about, and maybe ask difficult questions. You always get that at events, the questions they might not ask you over the phone. They kind of want to know if you half know what you're talking about, So yeah, really enjoyed it. It's good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, good stuff. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because there's some very subtle branding on your coat, and I want to dig into some of the news that you've got. But I was sort of interested in that discussion then. So from carrying on, you set the specialist workshop up. Where did the DPF Doctor network sort of come from? So you'd obviously smashed it locally. You were doing lots of tricky jobs. You'd seen that niche in the market. You're going, we're doing a lot of this for other garages. So there's obviously a natural thought process somewhere along the line that goes, well, there must be other people that could be.
This is gonna probably surprise a few people here, James. It was never planned. It's a bit like back in the day, the car park got busy. You think, well, where's all these cars come from? So what happened in the early days? I thought, and I look back then now and think how different we are to when the DPF Doctor network started. How much training we've got. Everything's evolved tenfold, But back then, I thought lots of people are complaining about DPF problems. Nobody seems to be fixing them. I reckon I could have a good crack at this and I could do all right. That was what I thought. I made lots of mistakes, which have all influenced our training and our process to be where we're at now. But back then, we were holding our own. We were doing all right. I can't say I didn't get the odd comeback back in the day, because we did. That's what we had to learn. But we were starting to do all right. And then the phone started to ring. And it was quite cool to start with, because I'm that cool guy, I fixed that. And there's some guy in 300 miles away in a workshop. I've been given your number, I've got this, whatever, VW Golfing with this strange problem, can you help? And then I remember the turning point. Callum can remember this as plain as day. Saturday morning, I wanted to go out for a blast on my motorbike for a bit of stress relief. And I thought, right, I need to change the oil. And we drained the oil out the bike, and I took 27 phone calls while lying under the bike trying to put the sump bung back in. I've got the sump plug in my hand. Yeah. And I threw the phone, because I thought, I need to get out on this bike or I'm going to go mad. So that was I went out and gave it the beans for a couple of hours just to let off some steam. But this was a problem that we created, that like all these people that I don't know are ringing up for help and advice. And I'm sure you'll have been through all this as well, James. So, and it was my wife, Lindsay, she says, this can't keep up. You can't get any work done. So this is where the DPF Doctor was set up as a network separately. So everyone thinks the DPF Doctor is mine. Lindsay set up the network. So the DPF Doctor network is actually my wife's company. I still have the workshop. So the DPF Doctor doesn't do any actual work. That all comes through energy tuning my workshop, nice. So energy tuning has been there long before the DPF Doctor. But it came by accident as how do I either A, get this phone to stop ringing, or B, turn it into part of our business where it's not a problem to answer it. And we still take, dozens of calls a day from members of our network, or even though they've had training, they might need a bit of advice and stuff, but we charge a fee for that now. And not everyone likes that, but we've all got all the boring stuff like kids at uni and mortgage and all them boring things to pay for and stuff. So that's what we done. We thought, if you're a member of our network, you get our full support. If you're not, then we can politely say, we'd love to help you, but you would need to jump on board. Just like I would love James to learn to teach me how to understand all them wiggly lines, but James also has a mortgage and kids and all the boring stuff to pay for, so he's going to charge me some money, you know. So that was kind of how the network came about. It was never planned. The DPF Doctor was a tagline that we used at Energy Tuning. So it was the DPF Doctor at Energy Tuning, which we used as a social media thing back in 2015. So that was never intended to be, so, you know, it was never part of the big plan. But here we are.
Yeah, and so
many years.
Yeah, how many years is it, Darren? Is that 2015?
So no, 2015 was me starting to move into specialising DPFs. You know, we don't do servicing, we don't do anything else, and we don't do any other type of diag work. We only take in emissions faults, so we can drill down and be good at that, but don't give us an ABS fault, or don't give us you know, anything else. I don't care if the electric window central locking doesn't work. It's not, they don't come in. So 2016 was when we realised we need to turn this into something proper, and we launched the DPF Doctor Network in February 2016. And back then it was, everyone comes to my workshop on a Saturday afternoon, and it was about 4 hours of a load of guys hanging around the workshop, and I had some bits of paper with notes on. I seen this on this car, and that was kind of all sort of thrown together. Certainly not anything polished, but people seem to sort of like it, and we've sort of, so it's good to look back then and think that, you know, we're continually moving forward. So we're a lot more polished and a lot more of a well-oiled machine than we were in 2016. It was just, you know, Darren needs to kind of learn to try and pass this information on to people. Certainly, wouldn't class myself as a teacher or a trainer. It was just something that we had to morph into to progress, you know.
And Darren, tell me, how does Lindsay view it now as her sort of brainchild all those years ago, seeing you under pressure, seeing you struggling to do your work and sort of giving away your time in inverted commas for free to help people? It's an awesome idea. Let's turn that into covering your costs while you're doing it. How does she view that business and its growth?
That might depend what day of the week it is as well, James, because obviously our better half see the not so exciting stuff, the 3 a.m. starts, and, you know, like people see, there's a magazine article that's a necessary evil to grow like a network, but the only time you can do it's at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you know, finding a time for all this, and without realising it, you create a monster, and that's fine, but it's certainly not something you can take half-heartedly, and it's a lot more work than probably you'll understand how much work goes in behind the scenes, but she does see it when it takes its toll as well. You know, there's times where, again, goes back to the 27 quid a week thing, doesn't it? You've got to put the extra work in, and you've got to be resilient and things like that, but it's not all glamorous running the network. Yes, she's proud of what we built up, and, you know, we have a strong network now. We have a fairly strong brand, but she's certainly seen the highs and the lows. You know, we all went through huge lows through COVID, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, we'd ring each other up. That was a tough time for us guys that are, I don't know. I look at yourself and a lot of us that club together, you know, and you know, people I look up to and as industry leaders and stuff like that. I'm still not sure I would class myself in that bracket, but we had a lot of people turning to us for the answers, you know, and then we would turn to each other behind the scenes. Nobody seen that. We're all calling each other up, and, you know, you would give me a call. How are you coping? Yeah, we're still closed. How are you coping? Yeah, we're still closed. You know, workshops were open, we were closed. So I think there's probably times where she wouldn't maybe have been a bit of that upset if I went, oh, I'm sacking this off, I've had enough, you know. But we've come through them. We've come through them hard times, and I think we're all coming out of it a bit stronger than we went in. But I'm not quite sure. It depends on what day of the week you ask her, I suppose, because she puts up, probably like you when you go home. They listen to you letting off steam here and there and moaning a bit, you know. So yeah. But I think we wouldn't change. We wouldn't change it, you know. But it's certainly been from the outside looking in. You can look at James Dillon and TTHQ when you went to the new premises and bigger and think, it's lucky he's lucky. You know, that's a good phrase that people use. It's all right for him, but you've got to take the risks and things as well, you know, and put the work in. So I don't know. I'll probably not really answered that one fully. But she probably at times sees me under pressure and thinks, is this worth it? But for me, there's only one direction for me, and that's always forwards. You know, so,
and Darren, you know, the network itself is now, you know, you've done an amazing job looking from the outside in as a casual observer. We've got, you know, garages in common that we help with their training. They're in your network. There's that sort of collaboration of trying to lift everybody to be better. We always hear amazingly positive things about the network. A lot of your network members have been members for a very long time. You've obviously got some secret and magic sauce, which I don't want to get into, but I'd really love to try and get your view about how do you get that sort of family and supportive atmosphere across, you know, because essentially you're now across the world, aren't you? We think of the DPF Doctor being in the UK, but I know you've got some of the guys in Australia. How do you get that sort of that love going and keep it going? What does that involve?
I would hope it's because we are who we are, you know. I'm one of them, and you know, we're a team. If someone's got a problem, we want to help solve that problem, you know. That's genuine. That's who we are, you know. But it's funny because the secret sauce thing, there is no secret sauce. It's just that I've done more of this than the other people, and that's it. That's it. There's no smoke and mirrors. And generally, what happens when someone comes in, James, is I talk about lots of things that people already know, but we join the dots up, and that's kind of it. We take, they already know that bit, they already know that bit, and they already know this bit, but they haven't put them all together into a process, and that's it. And I sometimes, I've got to be honest, I sometimes sit back and look and think, you know, people rave on about what we're doing. I'm proud of that because it means that we're doing something right, but I sometimes step back out and have a little bit, I don't know, everyone has a bit of the imposter syndrome at times and stuff, and think, we're not really doing anything fancy. We're not. We've just got a lot of real world experience about what we're doing. I think that's what people like. You get to see the quirky things when we're knee deep in it, you know, day in, day out. You know, if there's a job here at our workshop, it's got a DPF or EGR or SCR fault. It's not got an ABS fault. So if there's 5 cars outside, it's all relevant to what we pass on in training, you know. But there is no secret sauce. It's just working hard at making sure that we are as good as we can be for our customers. And we have and Callum also has the same outlook as every Monday, you've got to be better than the Monday before. That's our outlook. Every week you have to be better than you were the week before. And that applies to the training, how we run things, how the network improves, and that's genuine. Otherwise, people don't stay on for 5 years or for the long term. You know, they come in, they have a little look, it's all right, and they clear off again. So if we want to keep that family atmosphere, if you like, we've got to deliver. But I don't quite know what the magic dust is that keeps people on for years. As the answer, I don't know, but I just know that we keep being true to ourselves.
Yeah.
in delivering the best that we can, So I'm sure you do the same, where you put some content together, and then you've got to be self-critical, haven't you? Watch
Yeah.
back your training sessions, and could have done that better, and things like that, So, but we're all right. It's nice to get recognised in other the other side of the world and things. It's pretty cool. So we'll take
Yeah.
that.
But you do support your members very well with that sort of telephone help, and also then the proactive training. So when the guys are signing up, they're seeing obvious value in the support that you give. So yes, there are solutions for problems and jobs that they've got today, but you're also probably taking the bigger view about what's coming up, what's coming around the corner. How do you if you've got that growth mindset yourself in the team at the DPF Doctor about being better, that comes across to your network members, and they can learn to be better. And of course, you facilitate that with the training and the support. And I was going to ask you, because you sort of made a brave decision. I know we had conversations. You mentioned during COVID, we mentioned the automotive support group, which you're a key part of, getting that established and supporting others. And for training delivery, which you were moving into quite big, then that was the pandemic caused all that to stop. You made a transition then to a different method of delivery. How is that going? And I suppose the other thing, do you still do face-to-face training, or is that now you're permanently 100% online?
Well, the funny thing is, we've known each other a number of years now, and I always said I will never, ever do online training. Full stop was my view, because your stuff's out on the internet now, and we all know what happens, and people share stuff and share logins, etc. But then COVID came, and we're all trying to help the industry, and we've got people on the phone in tears, and we're not knowing what to do. But we were all closed, weren't we? We're sat at home thinking, we don't know when we're going to open the doors. And I remember I sat there, and I think everyone has a wobble now and again, James, no matter how resilient you are. And I sat there one day, and it was I sat there. I set up an office in the conservatory, and I sat there, and I realised it's 11 p.m. and I've sat there since, I don't know, 9 a.m. I didn't even switch a laptop on. I didn't have any lights on. Didn't have any radio on. I was a bit lost. And I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do? Because I don't know when we can open. We've fairly recently invested in the training centre, kitted it all out. But I've got no control over that. I don't know. Will we open, and then are we told to close down again in 3 months? It was a whole new, we were going into the unknown. So 11 o'clock at night, I went, right, Darren, you've had your wobble. You need to give yourself a shake, and you need a plan of, right, how do we move forward? And that evening, it was about 3 a.m. I had a picture in my mind of what is now our training portal. Very simple to use. We can deliver it via video like we are now. We record everything, so it's there on catch up, and then I thought we can have a section where I can build lots of short, just-in-time training videos. I grabbed a couple of videos yesterday off of jobs in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it's something useful that might help someone in 6 months. So I had this little visualization in my mind of what we wanted, but no idea how to achieve it. So I went off to a good friend, Dean, who you've met and you have worked with for years. And we went round and round in circles and realised the only way to do it was to build it from scratch. But what I can absolutely tell you, this was the same scenario. Moving online was like getting your parents to do online banking. That's not what we do. No. But we go and stand in the queue on a Friday to pay our money in. When we write, we've got a checkbook and we go in and we go to the bank once a week, and but that's not how the world works now. You've got to, and this is the conversations were difficult. So I'm saying to guys, they're saying, when can I come for training? We do all online now. we've invested a huge amount in this training portal. We decided if we're doing it, we have to do it properly. So it's high value, it works, it's reliable, it's easy to find what you need. But not everyone thought it was a cool idea. That's probably the biggest understatement. You know, people say, but I don't like online training. Have you tried it? No. But I don't like it. Well, how do you know you don't like it? You know, and it was a difficult transition, but we're now at the stage where the people that embrace it absolutely love it. You know, we've got guys in Australia, so when I'm delivering a live session, I've got some guys from the UK. So the last run I had guys in the UK, a guy in Barbados, we've got guys in Australia, a guy in Norway, and a couple of Dutch guys in there. None of them had to get on a plane, and I'm answering their questions as they come in. So now we've got it nice and slick, and I've learned how to deliver it, because that was the other thing, and you'll appreciate this. I've went from a room full of people that I can, you know, not that I would touch and feel them, but I could if I wanted to. And you can see their mannerisms, and you know, you can engage with them. I had to learn how to do that online, because I reckon if I didn't, we would have failed. Yeah. If I didn't make it feel like they were in the room with me, then I think it would have been a massive flop. But so now that's the normal for me to deliver it in that way, we will never go back, you know. One, because we can now have a global audience, but two, people's attention span. I do 2 hours maximum sessions and then tell them to clear off, and then give it a month and repeat the same sessions. You know, watch the replays back, because then what I'm noticing is the retention of information is really high compared with the, you know, the old 2-day course where it's 8 o'clock at night when they're getting out the door and they're a bit broken, because we're really doing a 3-day course in 2 days, and that's not good for learning, you know. So yeah, it's working well, and we took that brave decision, and that's us on that path, and that's it now. Online only.
Yeah. So Darren, you said you changed. What sort of changed in your style then, in terms of engagement? So you don't get the visual feedback. So you've got some other ways of getting them involved. So do they ask? They can ask questions. They can put their hand up, and then you can see them.
They ask questions. We use a chat box rather than, because the difficult part is, it's all well and good everyone having microphones on, but when someone's in the workshop, so what a lot of our guys do now is, I've got my regulars there, you know, Steve Scott, Clive Atto, Stephen Casapis in Australia, and they never miss a session. Now, because they've done a lot of it, they have it more like background noise in the workshop. They're still working, and they'll drop in and ask a question. So I like the questions come in via the chat box. I can see, and you know, not everyone has the cameras on, but it's nice when you can see half a dozen of them on screen and see what they're up to. So, you know, I can see when people are sticking a thumb up or they've understood, you know, but the interaction is really important. And what I do is my tester to see how much they've learned is, on one of the sessions, we have a live job in our workshop. So we have a DPF problem, and I don't know what it is. We pick one out of the workshop, and all the guys at the other end of the camera are in charge. So that they have to interact, because it's a case of, what do I do next, guys? It's a real job. Yeah. What do you want? What do you want? So I'm just their hands. So I become their customer. I want them to ask all the questions. And that's a really cool session, because I've got guys asking the right questions from various different parts of the world. But at the end of the session, they're straight back to work, you know. So so it's very interactive, you know. And then obviously the reruns are like your Netflix, if you like. Every session is there, you know, just like this podcast. People can listen to it at any time of day, you know. So it's working well, you know. It's working well.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. And I think that's probably some of your secret sauce, Darren. Although we don't call it that because it's open and it's obvious, but I think that is one of the things that your network are finding great value in having sort of on-demand training as well as that blend of the live events. I know we find the live diag here when we're running a face-to-face course where we go to the workshop and the boys take control of a job. We've got a job maybe in from across the road and we go, right, here's one we have no idea, let's go through the process. It really does. So, but I think, that for your network globally cuts down on the travel time. They can dive in during the working day. That is obviously where a lot of the value is coming from. Your knowledge, expertise and experience, and the way you put it across is keeping them engaged and developing. So
Yeah.
that's a big difference.
We've just got to make sure we don't go stale and things, and we do have an annual event where it covers the social aspect of the, people get in the bar and interact and have some fun and things like that, But I think it's also important anyone that's moving on. I'm hopeful that we'll see more online training as the years go on, and things like that. But it's important that we're not robotic. It's not like a pre-recorded, scripted, if you watch back, if you picked out some sessions that might on paper be the same, they won't be the same because the questions coming in are different, and we'll have a bit of fun as well. We'll have a laugh and a joke going through it, just like we would face to face, So I think that keeping it real aspect of it's important, So if you see someone laughing in the audience at Mechanics, I had a lady in the audience laughing last week. She was actually doubled over laughing. I thought, well, that's good. That's better than throwing something. And she knows nothing about the cars, but a friend of hers was having DPF problems, so she was writing stuff down to help her friend. But it was just that's a little bit of the thing you can't. You've got to try and implement that side of it into the online stuff as well, where it's actually someone has a little bit of a chuckle on the way, then they stay interested, So
it's that feedback. So
yeah, a bit harder than face to face to do that, but once it is doable. So
it's doable. Yeah. Well, you seem to be you are smashing it there because it's not now new anymore. It's the new normal, to coin a phrase, and it's working for you. The guys are engaging and they're obviously getting a lot from it because they're attending and watching it. So
new people coming in, it's quite easy, James, because people know that this is how we work. You get a 12-month login for our training portal. We encourage you to use it as much as possible and keep tapping in. The hard part was people came in the old way, or longer term members, no, we don't want that. I'm like, well, we haven't got a choice. We're closed, and then we will have it open, and we could only have 6 people in, and that's not feasible either. So, but now there's too many benefits for us. So it's here to stay.
It's working. It's working really well. No, good stuff. So, and the other thing I was really keen to talk to you about, Darren, which we touched on there a little bit. I see the branding on your clothing, and obviously I follow you on the social media and saw that the mechanics trip was it some form of launch also of your new endeavour of DC Lubricants. I've got a couple of questions that you might, if they're not too probing. One is really who's involved in the DC Lubricants business, and then what, for the reasons you've done that. So, what advantages do that give your network then that you're in control of your development side of the the additives and the chemicals that you use in solving those DPF and emission related issues?
So good question. So DCL is a collaboration with myself and Tom and Chris that own Diagnostic Connection, since the DC part. Initially, it was to solve a problem and stuff like that. There's lots of stories and rumours out on the internet and things like that. But my previous supplier, great products, but the relationship's ran its course. So we no longer have a relationship, which is not something that I'm going to discuss, but a personal thing, no reflection on the products. So what we went through was a phase of let's test everything else out there in the aftermarket and let's see what we're at. And we had a lot of close but no cigar, not quite what we're looking for and stuff like that. And then it became quite obvious that we need, we need something better. So obviously the experience we have with the job and knowing a lot about what key ingredients we need to make something react in a certain way, especially with DPF problems where it's not necessarily about the before and after, it's blocked now, it's clean. I need it to work with me, so temperatures, what's happening with stuff like that during the process are really, really important. We cover all this in training as well, so we can't really tell people that these things are critical and then be using products that are doing the opposite, So we decided that the way forward would be to have our own brand, and as a separate company, because the DPF Doctor is a small, although we have good numbers, we're not a huge network, 150 odd. So we need to, as a lubricants company, we need to be open to all. If the guy next door to me wants to use the products, then that's cool, So we felt it was a good collaboration because I bring the technical aspect to the setup, but I also need people that are experienced. So we all sat down, and it's a great collaboration because Tom and Chris bring a huge amount of experience with importing goods and all the boring stuff that's unseen, like stock control and forecasting and trends and all the stuff that's out with my skill set. So the team of us, I think, is a really strong team where they will handle all the day-to-day, side of the business. We actually have we have a really experienced guy coming in that we'll announce next month. It's going to be the day-to-day. He's going to be the manager. He's going to be the operations manager of everything, But my role is making sure the right stuff goes in the can. Even when we've spec'd that with our producer, my job is all the field testing. Does it work exactly how it should if the spec is right, and getting really deep down and dirty with that. So it means that I'm in full control of the quality control of what goes in the can. There can never be any sneaky changes or changes to specs or anything like that. So it gives me reassurance that we're in at the deep end with this, and we're in full control. For the guys on my network, people trust me. The guys trust that if it's good enough to be on my shelf. People outside listening to this won't get this because we're quite a closed shop, James. People get to see a 30-minute talk at an event, but they don't really know what makes me tick. But the guys I work with know if that's on the shelf in my own workshop, then it's right. So that gives them that big reassurance that any future products coming out will go through the same rigorous sort of testing and things like that, And from a personal point of view, I can't fall out with myself in 5 years. If that makes sense. So there's a little bit of an element of protecting my own interests by being involved in the company as well. That's probably as much as I'll touch on that side of it, but there are reasons why I want to be involved in DC Lubricants also, So, because 5 years from now where I may be a little bit more disposable or whatever, then that's not going to be the case, because it's, it's partly mine, So,
yeah.
So that's a little bit about that. Small range of products, James. So we're not, we may introduce some additional products somewhere down the line, but we don't want to be a smoke and mirrors company that have 4 different products when you can buy one that does the job of them 4. And that's what we've adopted, some good all-in-one products. So one can on the shelf does multiple different uses. So that's feedback from the workshops that, we like using X, Y, and Z, but it's quite a lot of product to keep on the shelf, So
yeah.
So
And so what have you got in the range now? Yeah, what have you got? So what is in the range?
So what we've got is, obviously we have a DPF cleaning kit, which we have an applicator toolkit. So we have that, and we have a DPF soak and rinse. So it's a two-stage. One is designed to clean out the DPF. The other one rinses it clean. Rinses all residual stuff out. So that's a fairly easy to use, really powerful bit of kit. But we've also brought out some in-tank additives, one all-rounder for a diesel engine. So instead of you having an injector cleaner that you use on annual service, it includes injector cleaner. It has turbo and EGR cleaner. And more importantly for me, it has a DPF cleaner in there. You've all heard me waffling on at events about the difference between a regenerator that may be called a cleaner. So we've introduced a powerful DPF cleaner in there that doesn't spike any exhaust temperatures at all. And I've done all the wrong things with that product that people do to make sure that it's super safe and super powerful. So there isn't a need to have a can of injector cleaner, a can of pre-MOT test treatment, a can of DPF cleaner. We've put it all in one can, or a can of turbo cleaner. And we've done the equivalent with the petrol as well, where it's compatible with GDI and non-GDI engines, rather than having one product does the older stuff, one product does the newer stuff, and then this one's for your pre-MOT. It's all in one can. And the feedback from the field on that has been, wow, that's good, because I buy one box of product. And if it's service, I use that can. If it's a pre-MOT, I use that can. If it's a block DPF, I use the same can. So that's been quite important for us to spec up but not a gimmicky. Again, the people that work with us, that I use a lot of the diesel in-tank products, and it has to work. And also an engine flush, because we felt that a workshop that does a lot of servicing and uses that. So we've brought out an engine oil-based oil flush, not it's not like full of kerosene and stuff like it's an actual oil, so it's nice and safe to use as well. So everything's premium quality. It's not aimed at being the cheapest. It's competitive, but the primary thing for us is it has to meet our very high standards for our own workshop. So anyone else using it knows if it's good enough for my workshop, then it's right. So that's it. Small range. It's all been a whirlwind few months bringing it to market and things. But again, you don't put the work in, you don't get the results, do you?
No, it sounds really interesting, actually. That's a really interesting voyage in terms of product development, because I know you were involved in sort of product development in the background previously. So to bring that skill set to support your own network and your own specific needs is really cool. And having brought products to market, there's nothing like that. That feeling of seeing it out there and doing its own thing.
It was like holding a baby a bit.
Yeah,
it's that holding the baby moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Is that available in which market is that available in, Darren, at the minute? Is that UK only?
UK at the moment. We have had, we're 4 weeks in at the time of us recording this podcast. We're 4 weeks into having product. We've had some good interest from overseas already, which is really good, and that's all based on people trusting our judgment. They know we're involved, so they want to be. So over the next few months, we expect it to be in other countries. We're fairly well down the line with a couple of people that want to import it into other countries. So as I'm sure you're aware, that it's not a case of I'm buying 2 boxes of product and I'm sticking it on a plane. It needs to be the right people, but you will see it coming up in other countries over the next few months. We expect that to progress quite a lot over the next 12 months. So, but I think that's primarily because we've done everything right, as with the DPF Doctor network, and us being involved, especially in the DPF products. why would it not be world class? Because we need to use it. If we earn our living from, you know, the DPF Doctor network being the go-to people, when, you know, we can't spec up low quality products to go with that skill set, can we? So that's really helped us getting going in the short term. Is the phone is ringing, so it's good, you know. So
quality along the way, matching your brand values and what you achieved in the DPF
well,
Doctor now in the products, and that's what people would expect. Absolutely,
and the same applies with Tom and Chris as well. As they have a real good reputation for customer service. You know, if there's a problem, they fix it, and that's going to be the backbone of DCL. Also, is just, you know, my role is a technical role. So if someone needs support in a technical manner, you know, if they've any questions, you know, we've got me there in that role. But them guys come with good values and stuff as well, you know. We're not hiding the fact, you know, we have the products are produced for us by a white label company. Anyone in the industry knows that's how the industry works. You know, the multiple people that pretend to make products, but they don't, you know. There are not so many places that you can go. You've got to know what you need, what key ingredients, what you need in the can, and go and find the right guy to produce it. And that's what we've done. So we're not pretending that we've set up a chemistry lab and we're garden shed or anything like that. We're working with proper people to make things to our requirements, you know. So we'll back that up with some good old fashioned customer service. You know?
Yeah, no, brilliant. And again, knowing the guys from DC, brilliant guys, and as you said, awesome reputation in the market, and bloody nice blokes as well to boot.
Yeah.
So great little team there. That's really awesome to hear that development, Darren.
Yeah,
congratulations on all the success.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. So hopefully it'll not be, you know, like anything from the outside looking in. It's been a lot of work to get this off. You know, we pulled this off in 12 weeks from start to finish. You know. Yeah. From idea to product, but that didn't come without a lot of like industry knowledge. You know. Knowing exactly what we need and things like that. So, but things have happened pretty quickly. So it was like holding a baby when the product was in our hand, you know. So it was good.
Yeah. Have you got a special gold tin in your bathroom? That's really the thing. You've got a special Darren's own brew there. You've got a special tin with handles, or it looks like the World Cup. It's
I think you probably know I'm not that into myself, James. You can't take yourself too seriously, you know. So the minute I start taking stuff like that home, I think Lindsay and the kids will very, very quickly bring me back down to earth with a bang, you know. So nothing like that. But it was nice. It was nice to see it, and nice to see how well received it was at the recent event. You know, I think it helps with a combined reputation that we've got, that nobody questioned the quality of what was going to be in there that was spoke to, which was very reassuring, you know. So I think that we'll build a strong brand. Watch this space for the next 5 years. So a bit more travelling needed though, James. That's the
and that comes with it, isn't it? That's the unseen part, really. Down, you've talked about behind the scenes work there of getting a product off the ground and supporting that. You know, the behind the scenes work that, you know, has to go in. You were well up for that and able for it, and have managed to do that. But the overnight success takes a whole heap of work to achieve, doesn't it?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Judith Chalmers and stuff like that. You're on a plane again and stuff. But the unseen side is, you know, last November when I was at Super Saturday in Philadelphia, where all the rest of the family was at my daughter's 21st birthday party, and I was the only one not there. You know, so. You miss out on a lot of things when you've got to go traveling and stuff. But it's not like a holiday though. You know, everything's a time vampire from when you step off the plane and you're trying to sleep and stuff like that. You know, so you know, I had a funny conversation. I'm going to curveball a little bit because different industries. There's a good friend of mine. He's a multiple world champion kickboxer, and he runs a very good team. So he takes fighters all over. You know, he runs seminars at different events and stuff. Me and him have conversations on how to hide from people. Now, he doesn't need to hide. He's 6'6" world champion kickboxer, so he doesn't need to actually hide from people in that way. But we have conversations of, no longer telling people what room number you're in and giving them, because sometimes you just need to grab 20 minutes to sit in your underpants and clear your head or whatever without the door knocking, or someone wants to buy you a drink or take you for dinner, and it's just sometimes it's quite relentless, but jet lag and working on different time zones and trying to keep up with stuff going on at home is quite intense, isn't it? But you've done all that in the past as well, so
Yeah.
you did warn me about this, James, a while ago. It's not all glamour, Darren, traveling to these countries. But there's a good side of it as well. So.
Yeah.
But don't go diving in, guys. Anyone listening, when you get opportunities to go overseas, think about the bigger picture. It's not as it's necessary, but don't just go saying yes to any different location either. So.
Yeah, picking a bit like we were talking earlier on. Sometimes the opportunities need selecting carefully. You could say that about partners and products, and it's about that little bit of foresight, really thinking about the bigger picture and making sure it works for everyone equally. And it probably goes back a little bit to the phone ringing and you answering it for free in the early days. That you do have to be quite careful that your brand values match, that you're equally winning. So from the relationship, it's a win-win, and that you're working together on that, that direction, and that has to work for you as the business owner or lead. It has to work for your biggest supporter. Like you, I'm very lucky to have Bev in my corner. You've got Lindsay, and behind every great businessman and businesswoman is a partner in the background, holding it all together and supporting and being that voice of reason and having the support, bouncing ideas off. And when it's going a bit wrong or a bit wobbly or the pressure's up there and you just want to vent or kick it round a bit, they're there to give you those sage words of wisdom and get you back on track. It's a difficult, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to an overnight success.
Yeah, there is a lot to it as well, and I think that we share a lot of we do have the same values that we've spoke at length a lot on many occasions and stuff. And not everyone that's your friend is your friend, if that makes sense either in the industry. There are people that want to come in and steal information, ideas, and then be the next cool guy. But we've done it the hard way, and we've done it by doing things right and creating our own path and things like that. So, I just that gets me through the dips and when you're taking incoming fire at times. I think, do you know what? I've not copied or robbed off anyone on the way, so we're just going to keep going in that direction. But you certainly need a good support network at home, So
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. It's important, and rightly so, that they then prosper from successes. That you can have the shared tough times, and you also have the shared successes in when it goes well. The holidays and the things that you like to have to support your lifestyle. You can look back and go, that's pretty awesome. We worked hard, and now's a bit of celebration. And definitely for Bev and I, we're heading away next week. We'll take 3 days off. We try and do it once a quarter to do a sort of review and a success and a little congratulatory. We stay somewhere nice and we go out for dinner and we maybe catch a show. But it's that whole, do you know what, the toughness that you put in and the hard yards that you do and some of the sacrifices. We've got a lot going on here with new software development, so there's been a few weekends that I've worked and a late nights, and you have to have that reward bit to go, and it's not anything great or grand by any, but just going away, spending time together away from the hustle and the bustle to focus on what's important. As you said, it's very important not to get, if you start believing your own hype or the hype others put around you, I think that's a very rocky road. You like me are very down to earth, sort of genuine, and I think that reward bit for you and your team around you, when I call Bev is part of my team, to give the thumbs up and say, isn't this awesome? We worked really hard for it. Here's the little fillip and the little uptick. Right now, crack on. We re-energize for the next quarter. It works
And if you
pretty well.
can't do that, then what's the point as well? Because we've both been through that where you can't have the holidays, you can't have the weekends, you can't. It's just all consuming. So we've just started doing that. Where next year's holidays booked, and in April I'm booked, and I got asked to go to an event, and it was already in there. I went, no, I'm going to Iceland for my 50th birthday, so that's booked in. That's some quality time for us. That is now going in the diary first for the following year. So I've got a couple of things to look forward to, and then the work stuff goes in afterwards. So I've done my fair share of travelling, and I'll still do that. But yeah, getting them little times in the diary, I think, is really important. Because if you don't book her in, you don't get it.
No, it always gets pushed back. You're dead right. It is that. Yeah, it is the success of success, as I like to call it. This is the success of success, and you can look back, Riley, and smile when people say it must be all right for you, and you go, do you know what? I don't think you couldn't have made the journey that I've made. Potentially, it's very tough and arduous, and you have to be single-minded and focused. And people looking, it must be all right for you. Probably is now. If you'd seen the previous 15 years, you probably wouldn't have said that.
I think a lot of people would give up, James, and it's maybe easy for us to sit, and I don't want us to sound the wrong way, it's maybe easy for us to sit here and say that because we've been through, but we know that how many times if you didn't have a bit of resilience that you just think, you know what, this is just too much, but you've got to keep going and have a vision and believe in that vision and stuff like that. And if you don't have that and know where you want to be going, then it'd be very easy to go, you know what, I'm just going to go back to fixing cars. There are days when you feel like that. When it's very rare I get a full day in the workshop, but occasionally when we're snowed under, I think, right, I need to put everything else on the back burner for a day. And I love it, I get in the workshop for the day and go, wow, I've just had to fix some cars,
Yeah.
it was just such a stress-free day in comparison to the monster you've created, But I think you touched on, people believe in their own hype. Any advice I could give to young up-and-coming people listening to this is exactly that, because I see a lot of people with huge potential believe in their own hype, and I class it, and me and Callum speak about this a lot, and it's like the guy who could have played for Man United, but he never made it out of League One, or he was the next best thing or the next big thing, and he stopped trying, and unfortunately we see this a lot, and you see this a lot as well, and the good guys are the if I pick out three of my regular guys that are always on training, Steve Scott, does he really need to be on training? People look at him, but he'll pick up one thing. Stephen Kasapas in Australia, he was in hospital having an operation, major surgery, and he had his laptop and he was in on session. That the guy's nuts, but these are guys that are mega experienced, Stephen and Clive Atwell, they're in their 60s and they're still learning, they're still pushing, they're still driving. If they believed their hype when they were 25, they wouldn't be where they are now. So the people need to look at them guys that have been up for the long term, and don't believe your own hype. Just keep humble, and you've got to be humble because the wheels might fall off. And you've got to go back to being the £27.50 a week guy then, haven't you? So
Do you know, it's funny. I've had the luck and joy of mentoring a few people in my time, and it's one of the ways I can feel I can give back. And I hope to be that humble character. And one of the things that I was taught many years ago, I used to work in corporate Britain, had a couple of decent jobs actually. And a sage old mentor said to me, "Be careful on the toes you step on the way up, because you'll be kissing them on the way down." And it's very, very true. And I look at the market sometimes and scan around and see people standing on others' toes, or not behaving that well, and you can't be seen to say anything because it comes across as what's it got to do with you. But I think that's one of the values I hold quite dearly, is being that respectful in both directions, and keeping it real, trying to be the best, as you said, being better on next Monday than you were last Monday. That's Clive, and that's Steve and Stephen. They're all those guys, aren't they? They are those soldiers.
That's exactly, and that's why they keep tapping in, and that, but you can all get to a point where you think, and because when you look back, whatever point you're on now, if you look back 2 years, you think, you should have improved over the last. You maybe don't notice it too much week in, week out, but if you adopt that mindset and you look back, you think, imagine if we'd stopped then.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be all that, would we? We wouldn't be. We wouldn't be anything, we'd be average at best or whatever, but we wouldn't be excelling in what we do, so yeah, don't believe your own hype, so
no, never, no.
So true. A good thing for that is family, James. They keep you down to earth,
Absolutely.
So, a quick funny story I'll tell you before, because I know we're probably getting close to time or whatever, but last year we went out for a bite to eat with my wife, and our youngest daughter was out with her work friends, so went over to say hello, and one of our work friends said, my husband has lots of magazines with you, and he likes to read all the articles that feature us and stuff like that. And the way that my daughter looked at her was hilarious, because she probably has no idea what we do.
No.
But that's good. She looked and went, really? So it's like, yeah, he's a big fan of your work and this, that, and the other. And she just went, it was just the face she pulled. I thought, that's good. That's exactly what you need. When you walk home, it's just, who's walking the dog and doing this and all the normal stuff, So don't believe your own hype. So awesome.
No, and Darren, we are. We've talked away there and chatted through some really decent stuff. And thanks ever so much for sharing what's going on in your world, and your story and your origins of where you came from and the journey you've been on, and the really interesting stuff that's happening with the DPF Doctor, the training, and particularly the launch of DCL and the lubricants business. So I wish you all the success with that. As is traditional, when the conversation comes to this point of the day, I love to ask my guests what sort of things you might want to change in the industry. And we have the metaphorical magic wand that we pass over to you at the end of the conversation and give you a couple of wishes, one on the upstroke and one on the downstroke. So if you may be thinking about things in the industry that you're seeing, observing, witnessing, things that you'd want to see done differently, if you could have a couple of wishes, it might just be one, but if you had the option of a couple of things that you could change with the swish of the wand, Darren, what would they be?
The perception of our industry, I'm very passionate on, when guys are at school leaving age, we haven't overcome that. We haven't, we need a big shake up. So for me, it would be at school leavers age, and also the colleges. For me, there are good ones out there, but we need to get the message out there of how challenging our industry is, how exciting our industry is. Not, you're a bit thick, go and be a mechanic, because that's so far out of date, as I'm sure you'd agree. But that's still the way that we are perceived. Oh, he's not very bright, he can go and fix cars. When in reality, they go into there, how complex how complicated the job is compared with 1990 when I started, when it was nuts and bolts. So that's something I feel really strongly on, is how do we get into the schools, the school leavers, but also I spoke my mind at our local technical college, because they've got all the fancy workshops, but they're not inspiring the young guys. They're lacking. I don't know. There's a spark missing there. So, if I could wave my magic wand, people would see our industry as going to be the equivalent of being if you say you're going to be an aerospace engineer, wow, it sounds really cool and exciting, doesn't it? But it's not the same when, I'm going to go and fix cars. It's very downtrodden. And if we don't change that, where is our industry going to be in 30 years? We're going to have a severe skill shortage, which we are already facing, So a tongue-in-cheek one would be, let's ban everything apart from diesel. So Darren can retire happily. But I'm nearly 50 now, so I'm going to be, to quote James Dillon, I'm going to be the last hippopotamus in the pond. I remember that from one of your talks. I'm the old guy with plugs and points. I'm not interested. We'll diversify when we need to. So that's my tongue-in-cheek magic one. But the perception of the industry would be my big one.
Do you know, and you've hit something on the head there, and I've met some really inspiring college lecturers in my time, but I've also come across a few that aren't, and I go back to our conversation about how we were inspired by our mentors in the workplace. I think college lecturers, and we have a few that listen, and some of the good ones are tuning in here, the job they do to inspire young lads. We have a young apprentice with us at the minute workshop. We had another apprentice marketing, Olivia, my daughter, was an apprentice here. And we have young Tom, who won I Am My Student of the Year. Last year, he's here helping us out. And he's inspired by one of the guys at the local college, Jack, who sort of got him in the groove and really has inspired him. And I think, college lecturers have a bit of a bum time, and they're up against a lot of legislature and detail. I think, probably getting those guys to tune into the inspiration, and these young aspiring techs are looking up to them for the added extra. And it's a bit like we also talked about doing the bare minimum in a job. College lecturers have got that really important role of inspiring and setting that spark in amongst all the humps and grumps of a teenager to really fire those guys up. And more important now than ever, when we're under pressure for jobs to fill vacancies and to train young techs, that guys out there lecturing in colleges, keep it up and really fire these guys up, because we really need them.
Yeah, we do need them, because not enough of them coming through. I attended one. There was a lecture on EVs recently, so I probably looked a bit odd sat at the back. But I went there just to see. I was interested to see how many students would turn up, and there were three students. So I was like, they're the guys with the future. And so I had a chat to the apprentices and stuff like that there. But we need to make it sound more exciting, So But the inspiration is the thing. If people are inspired to do well, then they will learn more, So I think that kind of needs to come almost before the learning. Oh, this guy's quite cool, I want to be like him. What do I need to do to be like that guy? If that makes sense, it's like it's something. Not all of them. There are good guys out there, but there seems to be a bit of a plodding along, ticking boxes. So we need a bit more excitement.
A bit more inspiration. A bit more inspiration.
Yeah,
Darren, listen, that's been delightful. I really appreciate you giving up your time. I know you're a busy man. We've heard about that. So thanks ever so much for coming on and having a chat with our dear listener and sharing your story. It has been awesome, and really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate the invite as well. So I'm a big fan of the podcast. So hopefully this one's interesting enough for people. But if not, you can skip to the next guy. He'll be more. You have better stories to tell.
That's been brilliant.
Thanks again.
Thanks ever so much. It's been brilliant. I'll catch you soon. Thanks, Darren.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.